Okay. Very good. Thank you. The July 6th special meeting of the Edmond City Council will now be called to order. This is a special City Council meeting. We will open with some first comments about the limited seating that we have arranged for us, and recognize that we also have an overflow in the downtown community center. We want to make sure that you know that they will be able to hear the proceedings tonight, and later will be given an opportunity. Mr. Murdoch, can you explain how this might work?
Mayor and Council, the one item that we have on the agenda is to discuss any possible amendments to our existing emergency proclamation. We have a number of people here in our council chambers. We restricted the number of seats, encouraging everyone to wear a mask as well as effectively socially distance. We have a number of people, I would estimate 60 to 70, over in the downtown community center auditorium, who again have been offered the opportunity to wear a mask and also to socially distance. They've been given an opportunity to sign up if they want to be heard on this particular issue when that's appropriate for the city council. So that's kind of the format that we'll follow this evening. We have city staff that are in the downtown community center that are communicating that information to the members of the public who are there, and of course the folks that are here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we begin our discussion on the issues, as Mr. Murdoch said, the purpose of our meeting, this special meeting, is to discuss the last COVID-19 proclamation that was dated the 15th of June. We do these special meetings every Monday, ever since we started the proclamation, so that we could advise you on what changes that have been made and how we've progressed and modified and staggered our reopening of businesses and city services. We want to keep you informed about the status of the disease in our community, and this is about the only place that you can find that kind of information. We're here tonight mostly because there's been in the last 2 weeks, essentially a 50% increase in the amount of cases in the Oklahoma state area. About 6,000 cases have been added to the 10,000 that would existed prior. And so this is a pretty rapid change. We're concerned about it, and we will talk about that issue. There's been some information I would refer to as misinformation, widely disseminated over the internet, that the city was going to close down businesses, or that we should close down businesses. That's totally false by all possible reason, but nonetheless, there's a lot of folks here tonight, and we're going to let them speak. The governor hasn't changed his policy. No other city in the state of Oklahoma has changed their policy. We don't have a COVID emergency crisis in Edmond. We've had maybe 10 people die in Edmond since we started this issue. We've amended our proclamation, I think 11 or 12 times. We've changed nothing radically. Most of our meetings are informative on following the guidance of the governor's HOURS program. HOURS stands for Opening Up and Recovering Safely Our Businesses. We've staggered the reopening of city services that were closed at the start of this emergency, and we've been moderately staging gradual efforts based on declining COVID numbers. We're going to discuss in detail, I think, some of the county health department determinations for the recent surge and the sources for the recent surge, which really don't concern 99% of the businesses in our community. This weekend, all the council members have spent many hours trying to answer the hundreds of emails as respectfully as we can to clarify what we've done and why we've done it and our thoughts about tonight's meeting. I don't presume to speak for the rest of the council members, but I'll let them chime in on their own. But we're not here to close down businesses in Edmond. That's my opinion. Nick, you have some thoughts on that too?
Well, just to add to that, as you all know, the rumor mill went crazy over the weekend, and we were answering hundreds of emails on a rumor that simply was not true. So I'm glad we had a chance to clear that up. And for those of you who sent emails to me or other council members asking, is this true or not, I'm really glad you did that, so that we'd have a chance to tell you what's really going on, and the fact of what was really going on that's not an item for discussion. We're not closing down business. We're not even talking about that today. So give us a chance to clear that up. So if by chance you are here today to speak on the subject of closing down businesses, we're not talking about that today. You're welcome to stay, but we're not going to be talking about that. But I'm glad, when you hear things that just don't sound right, rather than pass on the rumors, do what a number of people did, and that is, call somebody, text somebody, send an email, and find out what the real story is. So that's all I would say now. I'll have a lot more to say later, I'm sure.
Daryl, you have any thoughts on some of the questions you had in the emails?
Comments very similar to Mr. Massey. I received emails, and some of the responses I went back and said, where did you hear this from? And then I saw some of the emails where I was tagged on something, and I couldn't generate the source of where it was coming from. But once again, I know I'm available. Even though I don't work in this town majority of the time, well, COVID has forced me to work in this town majority of the time. I am accessible by email or by phone. Please pick it up if you, especially if you live in my ward, you have a question or comment or concern. Please don't hesitate to call and ask. We all spent a lot of time this weekend trying to answer the majority of the questions that were asked, or try to squelch the rumor that wasn't true. Tonight we're going to discuss what do we need to do for our town, and that's what we've done before. And that we made that proclamation back in March, that we were going to meet every off Monday, that we don't meet on a normal city council meeting to talk COVID. So this special meeting tonight is nothing new. It didn't just come up yesterday. It's been on the books since the beginning of COVID. And the plans are for us to continue to talk about COVID on Monday, unless we need to hold an emergency meeting during the middle of the week for the citizens of Edmond. Thank you.
Josh?
My wife would like to know who started the rumor. Because it wasn't a real fun holiday, but this is what we signed up for. It's okay. But no, I appreciate who called and me and who allowed me to respond to emails, and I only got a chance to do it after so many. But I agree completely with what Nick and Daryl said. Thank you.
David, any thoughts?
Same as my peers. I'm glad that people feel like that they can reach out to us, and I'm glad that they did. And I hope that people got the answers that they wanted. I was a little disappointed in a couple of them that threatened to sue us because we were shutting down. And I mean, I'll just say publicly that doesn't do much for me when somebody comes off right away and says they're going to sue us. That's, that was never our intention to shut down anything. So I appreciate those that reached out and in a friendly way and asked questions.
All right. Well, anyway, I think what I'm trying to say is that we're really not here to talk about closing down business, never intended to be. We are here to deal with the facts that we have, and there has been a rapid increase on that number of cases that we've had in our community and in the state, and that gives us all pause, as it should, because that is a significant increase. We're going to start with Matt Stillwell, our Director for Emergency Management. Matt stays in contact with the Health Department, monitors the numbers for our city, and keeps us advised of things, recommendations from the County Health Department. Thank you.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Appreciate you all gathering here tonight, and appreciate the public being here also to discuss these important issues. And basically, I'm here to answer your questions. We all know that the numbers have significantly risen. Some of the gating criteria that we need to go in certain directions isn't necessarily going in those directions, such as hospitalizations. One thing that we're very encouraged with is that fatalities remain very, very low. Considering the number of, new cases, it'll be another 6 to 8 weeks before we see any type of impact when it comes to the fatality number. So basically, numbers are going up. Why are they going up? Some of it's guesswork. Some of it we know. So the Oklahoma City County Health Department did come up with 7 areas they said they've seen a lot of activity in, such as bars, faith-based activities, funerals, gyms, house gatherings, weddings, and other small events. So from an emergency management standpoint, I think our message is CDC guideline adherence is effective, personal hygiene, social distancing, everything that we've been doing since March. If we do it effectively, we can curb these numbers. So that's basically where we're at and what I have to report at this point, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
So as far as the city of Edmond is concerned, the total cases since day one has been 247. Is that what you're?
Yeah, and the caveat on that is we had a period of time where we weren't getting one information from the health department, so our estimation for that true number is probably 20 units higher.
And the total is probably less than 10 fatalities.
And that is on the high end because that's strictly taken from the zip code information, and our zip codes bleed into jurisdictions outside of the city of Edmond.
Now, we were approximately, that's gone up a significant number in the last 6 weeks, 5 weeks, 4 weeks, in terms of the 240, 247 number.
I didn't hear your
Has
question.
that number changed radically or differently in the last 2 or 3 weeks?
I think the number's gone up significantly.
Okay.
Yes.
About 50%, perhaps,
Yes.
like it has.
From what to what, Matt?
So if I look at my data here,
And if you've got 10, you couldn't have gone up very much.
Well, not the deaths, but the number of cases.
and, I'm really going to go off the county numbers. I don't have the city breakdown with me, which I provided to you last week. But if we just even look at the county numbers, going back to the 15th of June, for instance, we were at 1,643 cases. We're now at 3,600. And the ratio would be similar in the city of Edmond. So we've gone up 2,000 cases, really, in just a couple of weeks.
And that's Oklahoma County?
That'd be the county. Right.
It's a 50% increase for statewide in the last 2 weeks. I did that number based on what you gave me.
Yeah, and we continue to set some daily records, it seems like, every few days. We either get close to what the daily record is for the state or the county, or
So part of it we're testing more, or is it we're testing the same number
Yeah,
and a higher percentage are showing, or how is that working?
yeah, so the testing certainly has gone kind of through the roof. Now, we're past the peak of number of tests, but still there's a large number. In fact, the health department just reported today that last week they were getting 300 requests a day for tests. So this is the county health department. 800 a day now for the past week compared to the week before. So the requests are higher. The ability to give tests it's pretty constant. So people are having to wait periods of time in order to get a test done. But testing certainly is higher, so you're going to get higher results. We're seeing a lot of younger demographics, so 18 to 49. Numbers are higher than they've ever been, but a lot of that testing is due to contact tracing, and a lot of those tests are coming back asymptomatic as a result of that. So it's not apples to apples as far as who's being tested and the results that we're seeing compared to going back to March and April. But certainly I think our reality today is painting a clearer picture as to how the disease is spreading and some of the dynamics that we have to deal with, particularly with the asymptomatic cases that we see out there.
In the age group of under 18, so you're talking high school kids or younger, is that group pretty much the same?
I'd have to look at that, Mayor, to be honest with you, but I do know numbers in all demographics have gone up.
Matt, do you have reliable numbers of the percentage of people that are asymptomatic?
So the last number I saw on that, it is a couple of weeks old now, but 40% of the, 43% actually, of the demographic of 18 to 49 were asymptomatic after they tested them. So that number is high, which means that asymptomatic people are carrying and could spread, so that's the concern. So we're happy that they're not sick, certainly, so.
All right, any other questions, council?
Yes, so has anything changed on the way we think, we being the CDC and all of the other health officials, how the virus is transmitted, that it's through droplets?
So, yeah, so that's a really good question. And so early on, the discussion was about you're going to pick it up off of a surface, and it's going to survive on a surface for so long, depending on what the surface is made out of. And that was the first story. And so we get to the end story, and the end story now is that it's through droplets. It's through coughing, sneezing. It seems to be the big issue. I'm not a scientist. I question why they didn't know that in the beginning, but it seems to be kind of the common theory at this point that it's through transmission. It's through spit droplets, sneezing, coughing, maybe even some sweat and that kind of stuff.
Any other questions, council? Go ahead.
So are we moving into what you're hearing from the health department on what they're suggesting right now?
So we go back to the basics, first of all. So the CDC guidelines of washing your hands frequently. If you can't wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, singing happy birthday or whatever works for you. Hand sanitizer is also effective. I'm hearing things such as, okay, so we're into summer now, so people are going to be at the beach and they're going to get a little bit grimy and that kind of stuff. They say hand sanitizer isn't as effective if your hands are dirty. So if you have sand and particles on your hand, or you've been doing gardening or whatever, they say get that stuff off and it'll be more effective. So your basic CDC guidelines for personal hygiene. I think social distancing is very important. I mean, one of the dynamics that I see, and this is just observational, there's really nothing behind it, but I know early on, if you went to the grocery store, you could just see people are being very careful. A lot of masks were being worn. People were being very careful about sanitizing, shopping carts and that kind of stuff. If you go to the supermarket now, you don't necessarily see that level of carefulness. There's a difference. There's less people wearing masks. I know some stores that used to have supplies for you to sanitize may not necessarily have that available, or they're running out. So the dynamic certainly, I think, has changed a little bit. I think one thing we can learn from the early phases when it comes strictly to the social distancing and that kind of stuff is that we saw that being effective. So the objective back then was to, remember, broaden the curve. We didn't want the steep curve. And so those practices seem to have worked. So I think if they worked in that environment and we're trying to slow the spread, then I think those basic techniques can still be effective.
I notice a lot of the companies now are using their safety precautions as part of their advertising, encouraging people to shop there because their employees wear masks and they practice good social distance and do that. And so I've really been sort of amazed at the support of the business community to make this happen, because I would be perfectly honest, they don't want their customers to get sick in their places. No one would want that.
Right. Well, I think we all feel as customers when we walk into into a place and we see that measures are being taken, that gives us a certain level of comfort, right? I know that happens personally for me. There's been businesses I've gone in where I haven't felt comfortable, but I've been in other businesses where I say, hey, they really are paying attention, and I'm not as apprehensive about going in and taking care of what I need to take care of. So I think that's a good observation.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, council?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're going to ask our city manager, Larry Stevens, to come forward and tell us what we're doing, city staff-wise, and then the status of city services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In response to the ongoing reality of increasing numbers of COVID cases in Edmond and Oklahoma County, we're reviewing several potential rollback options for our organization, and those include reviewing our protocols for city activities and buildings with two basic goals in mind, the first being the safety of our employees, and the second, the safety of our citizens who interact with our employees. This review will include the potential of again restricting access to city buildings, the potential of again increasing remote work options for appropriate employees. Concerning the Pelican Bay Aquatic Center, the facility has a capacity of 560 people. We have set a current limit of 350, and we are encouraging social distancing. And we've also had a note from the City County Health Department that they have not seen any significant outbreaks that can directly be tied to public swimming pools. The splash pad, as you know, we've been waiting for a replacement controller so we can repair that facility and open it. However, when that happens, we're not planning to reopen the facility in the current environment based on our past experience of large crowds basically in that relatively small area. So we're going to kind of wait and see where we stand with that. Rentals of city park pavilions. One of the Serious 7 that was identified by the Oklahoma City County Health Department and Mayor Holt was small events. So we are considering whether we should allow those pavilion rentals to continue. Meals at the senior center. The senior meal program is currently projected to restart on August 3rd. But if the case numbers continue to rise, then we'll reevaluate that opening as well. Over the past weekend, we had our first confirmed case of COVID-19 among the employees in our city workforce, which is a workforce of almost 800 full-time employees. Utility disconnects. The emergency declaration identified June 30th as the end date for a moratorium on those disconnects. It's our understanding that most of the other utilities in the area have already reinstituted disconnects, including OG&E. We have been considering an appropriate date in July to reinstitute those in our utility operations as well. However, we want to emphasize that we are willing to work with all of our customers in developing a payment plan when needed. And that's nothing new. We've always done that. We are always available to talk to people about an individual payment plan, and that will continue. For people that might have an interest in that, I would suggest that they call our utility customer service department. That number is 359-4541. And our people will be glad to talk with any of our residents or our businesses. So with that, that concludes my report. Are there any questions you might have?
Are we still doing the events at the ball field and soccer fields?
We are at this point. That's actually something else we're taking a look at as well.
I noticed that some of the baseball, pretty good crowds on the weekends.
Pretty good crowds is an accurate description. So,
How's the lake doing?
I don't know, to be honest. We haven't had any indications of any problems recently. You know, we reopened that a couple of months ago, including the fishing docks and so on. So as far as I know, there's a lot of activity at the lake. I do know that. We talked about a potential record year for lake attendance. I think we're going to hit that, but haven't heard of any problems. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions, council? Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. We're going to ask our city attorney to give us the status of our last proclamation and maybe summarize some of the suggested changes that have happened in our community areas and assess the difference between some of the things Oklahoma City did in their recommendations, maybe.
Mayor and council, thank you. As you've indicated previously, the last time the city council amended their declaration of emergency, which was first issued back in March, was on June 15th. It has been our practice throughout this entire time period to follow very closely the actions of the governor of the state of Oklahoma, as well as surrounding communities, especially the Oklahoma City. I believe the council felt it was appropriate for us to be consistent with those standards and directions and requirements, and to be as consistent, and that would be helpful to our citizens. So we have amended our declarations as we've gone through the various changes that have been adopted by the state of Oklahoma under the Open Up and Recover Safely plan. As we might remember, it seems like a long time ago, but there were various phases. The last phase that was entered into was phase 3, which basically opened up a lot of different things. You might remember that there were essential and non-essential businesses and a lot of different things, but now we're past that. So when the phase 3 went into place, we followed suit, and we have continued to follow that. We continue in our last proclamation to encourage persons over the age of 65 and people who have any age who have serious underlying medical conditions, collectively referred to as vulnerable individuals, to stay in their home or place of residence except for working in the critical infrastructure sector, or also the conduct of essential errands. So that requirement, or that recommendation, as I would say, and guideline is still present today. We've also made certain requirements with regard to special event permits, and directed the city manager with regard to not discontinuing water and utility services through June 30th. We always reminded our citizens to put a physical distance of at least 6 feet between yourself and other people, and consider wearing a facial covering when in public settings as recommended by the CDC. Always encourage our citizens to follow those requirements and guidelines. So recently, Oklahoma City revised their proclamation of emergency on July 2nd. Mayor Holt of Oklahoma City had a press conference on May 1st, and then subsequently issued a proclamation on July 2nd that went into effect on July 3rd. Basically, again, made some requirements or some changes with regard to all on-premise staff in restaurants, breweries, wineries, taverns, shopping mall, food courts, food halls, cafeterias, bars, nightclubs, and any other food service must wear facial masks or coverings while on duty. Again, this is directed to staff at those establishments. Also indicated that breweries, wineries, bars, including taverns, nightclubs, and other similar drinking establishments designated as Type 1 facilities by the Able Commission shall be reduced to 50% of the listed occupancy load determined by the Oklahoma City Fire Marshal. Then it also indicated that businesses with theater-style seating where persons gather for presentations or entertainment shall offer seating in a staggered manner so that customer groups are socially distanced. These businesses include, but are not limited to, movie and live theaters, concert halls, sporting venues, amusement parks, places of worship, wedding venues, event venues, and funeral homes. Those were specifically addressed, the 7 items that we talked about earlier, or 7 types of activities that the City County Health Department had identified. And then the proclamation continues that encouraging persons, every business in Oklahoma City should consult for further best practices, those requirements listed by the City County Health Department on their website. So it's my understanding that the Oklahoma City proclamation is in effect through July 17th. I think they're going to reevaluate prior to that date, and then perhaps we'll issue another proclamation or take some other form of action. Don't know. I continue to be in contact with representatives of Oklahoma City and other metropolitan area cities to find out what they're doing and what they're looking at this present time. So our practice at this point has been that when we see something that we need to make a significant change to our proclamation, we have done so. I'm ready to do so at your direction. I do not have anything prepared at this point in time. Again, as you mentioned earlier, we will meet again next Monday night, July 13th at 5:30 as part of our regular agenda. This item regarding a proclamation or any revisions to a proclamation, as it has been ever since March, will be on our regular agenda for discussion and consideration of any changes. We will also meet on July 20th, which is the next following Monday, to have those additional discussions, and we will continue to do so on July 27th and on until directed otherwise. As you recall, we have been meeting for a period of time through Zoom meetings or video conference meetings, a term I was not familiar with until not too long ago. But we will, right now, we're obviously all here. If the city council wants us to wants staff to begin going back to the process of Zoom meetings or video conference meetings, then we're prepared to do so. We can do that as soon as July 13th if you want to do that. So that's kind of where we are from a staff's perspective. Stand ready to make any changes that you want to do. Thank you.
So you're saying that Oklahoma City probably will reevaluate what they issued last week and may even make further changes or back off some of the changes that they approved?
My understanding is that the current proclamation has the dates indicating from starting on July 3rd through July 17th. So my conclusion would be that they're going to have further conversations or further action prior to July 17th.
Okay, thank you.
You know, I would just point out for the audience in a number of emails that we got, we look at Oklahoma City because obviously they're right next door to us, and when they change something, we want to know what they're doing, and should we be doing something similar or different to that. But we are not dictated to by Oklahoma City. We'll evaluate, may look at it, it may be a good idea to do it, or we may decide that Edmond's going to do something different. But that's important to remember. I've seen a few comments, well, why are we being dictated to by Oklahoma City? Well, we're not. We'll look at it very carefully.
I agree with you on that. And also, they do things a little differently because their charter's a little differently, or Edmond's charter's a little bit differently. The mayors in some of the cities around here have a little more authority to make statements and declare proclamations and sign things. And in Edmond, our charter specifically says it'll be a city council decision and not the mayor's decision regarding proclamations, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we try to get the council to agree on everything, and so far we've done pretty good at doing that. So I'm real sort of proud of that. I think the real issue, one of the things that they changed was they went from a should to a must in terms of having businesses operate with masks for their employees, and that's sort of a big step. I don't, we can ask for that. We have real difficulty in enforcing those kind of rules, and the only application that I think Oklahoma City had was an opportunity to review their permits, which happens every 2 to 3 years, and they will go through an approval process that has some COVIS applications, I guess, and prior to it being approved, they will make sure that those rules are being applied. That appears to be the most effective way that Oklahoma City has found to enforce the rules for the businesses, and I just don't see us being in that business. It would be effective, but it would take a long time, and hopefully 2 to 3 years down the road, we're well beyond those kind of applications and situations. But that's what they put in their ordinance or their proclamation. That's sort of a different thing, and it would work, but it's not going to have a major impact on activities and most businesses right now are requiring their people to do that, or a large percentage of them are. Any other thoughts on the Oklahoma City?
So they didn't have a specific fine in place, Mr. Murdoch? Sorry.
No. The last line of their, or the last paragraph of their proclamation says, any person, including but not limited to a business owner or employee not complying with the requirements of this proclamation shall be subject to 15-40 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code, which does provide for a fine.
Do we have anything similar in our ordinances?
Yeah, we provide for fines and penalties for violations of many of our ordinances.
Okay.
We have not, in the proclamations and declarations that we've issued so far, we have not specifically talked about penalties or provisions. If there's a violation of something that we felt would be appropriate, then a citation could perhaps be issued and a fine could be levied if determined to be appropriate.
Thank you. Any other questions, Council?
Yes, on that aspect of fine, penalties and all that, in my understanding is just because you have a violation or potential violation, doesn't have to be a penalty associated with it. Am I correct in that, sir? Your knees are going to go out on you tonight.
Getting your
Got one
answers out.
replaced, it's good. I would say that I have seen ordinances where there will be a certain conduct prescribed, but there would not be a specific penalty
Correct.
provided for related to that. There may be something similar, but I've heard of ordinances where they will not prescribe a particular penalty.
And the reason why I say that is because I would like to say that I just did some review today. I went to OSHA website, I went to the CDC website, I went to FDA, Federal Drug and Administration website, and they all talked about highly recommend for their workers to wear masks. That was in all the guidelines that we follow here. I would, and some of the comments that I've received are that we would like the city of Edmond to show a stance that we want those, or the workers that are serving the public to wear masks. I'm sort of in agreement with that, is that the servers need, to me, it does two things. It protects the server, it helps protect the server, and it helps protect the customers. There's more scientists out there than there are people. And I can call myself a scientist because I raised 3 kids. I'm an expert. But the thing is that I'm looking at the whole of everyone, is that possibly, yes, let's have masks, let's say that. And if they don't do that, guess who's going to really make the determination how much business that operation gets? It's going to be the general public. Because the general public is going to make their determination when they walk in there. There have been several stores that I walked in where one person had on a mask, the person taking the money had on the mask, but the person touching my food didn't. Guess what? They will never get another dollar from me until everyone in there has a mask, period. And that's what's going to make that final determination there. But, I see people wanting us to make those determinations. Those rules are already out there. Are the people who govern the food industry, the health industry, they want you to wear a mask. And yes, you can go all the way back to March 13th when one doctor said a mask wasn't important, and then it changed the next day. That is the medical community. It is a science. It is never perfect. And if you have a doctor out there that is perfect, and every time he or she is giving you a diagnosis that they were right on each and every time, please give me their number so I can go to them. And so that's what I'm saying, is that we have to grow, continue to grow, and continue to evolve in this. One, to how to help the businesses. Two, to how to help our community in our world to get through this situation. Because at the end of the day, we don't have the answers. But we do know a couple of things. We do know that social distancing helps. It helps the spread of that. We do know that the virus is spread by droplets, which is moisture. We do know those things. So how do we help ourselves so that we can go do the things that we want to do in our community?
Aren't the state business guidelines, don't they mandate or is it just highly recommend masks for restaurant workers and field?
Highly recommend.
Highly recommend, okay.
Yeah, and I think that's the point. I mean, what you said, Darrell, I think is well taken. But the CDC and the county health department and all these other regulations say should, highly recommended, we strongly suggest or whatever, but nobody says you will. Because that implies a law, and then how do you enforce that? And I think that's a problem for municipalities and states and so forth. It's just, it's problematic to pass laws that there's no way you're going to be able to enforce. And so I think, workers in restaurants and bars wearing a mask is a good idea, and probably a lot of them are doing it already. Some of them stopped. I think they misunderstood when we went to the phase 3, and they can go back to that and strongly encourage that. And as they know that that's the message, I think to your point, most business owners, I want my customers to feel comfortable, and I want them to come here, and if my employees wearing a mask makes them feel better, that's great. And I want to do that, but and it needs to come from the business owner. You don't need to make mask optional for the teenagers working there in the cash register or something or other. It's a business either requires it or you don't, and that's the point. Businesses require what they're going to do in terms of their employees, or they may have a requirement. If you come in here, you're going to have to wear a mask, employee or customer. Then everybody gets to decide, okay, that's fine, I'll put on the mask and come in, or no, I'm not going to do that. But that's not the government dictating to businesses how they should operate in that environment. And I just think when we go that far, it's problematic.
Any other comments, council? I would like the staff perhaps to make some suggestions on that and review what the other cities have done, see if it's been done successfully, and in any areas where it's been successful, and at least provide us some guidance and recommendations regarding mandating or just highly recommending the mask for the eatery groups that were listed, like bars and cafeterias and food halls and shopping malls and wineries and breweries and restaurants. It seems pretty logical that the workers there probably already are wearing the mask, but just in case, to see what kind of a difference it would make if we change it from may to must. And we can have staff do a recommendation or do a survey like we did when we first started, who had closed and who hadn't, and what. Okay, thank you. Any other things that would intrigue us about this? I'm really sort of worried about youth activities. I'm concerned about that, and staff has some recommendations regarding how, if we had some issues regarding some of the programs that we're running for sports or soccer or basketball or whatever, and maybe the Y can help us out a little bit with their experiences too, because we're sort of involved in that. I guess the swimming thing has turned out to be pretty good so far, which is encouraging, because I thought that would be one of the first areas that we'd probably have a problem. And I think staff was very concerned about that
But
too.
correct me if I'm wrong, have we had any spikes in situations or events that have led to youth activities?
We have had, or we think we have
Which
one.
ones?
Well, I'm not going to talk about it because but I got an alert today from the county health department, and that was very specific. Okay. And it was involved our community, so I'll just leave it at that. And we'll find out more. Maybe there wasn't as much to it as they thought. I shared that with you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was sort of scary, and I think I sent you all a copy of it. Hopefully I did.
I'll look.
Okay. I guess at this point in time, we have some people that want to talk, and I don't need to tell my wife when she can start cooking, but anyway. Are we ready for comments from the public? Okay. Hey, Randall, I'll give you first opportunity here since you're up front, and since you have 5 minutes or less.
It won't take me that long, Mayor, and it's kind of good to be here. I've been gone for several months. Haven't had a suit on for 8 months. So. And I've written to you guys, you know where I am on this. Matt Stillwell, who's your Director of Civil Defense Safety, he put it pretty clearly. If we just follow the CDC guidelines, we could curb the virus. But experience since Memorial Day has shown that the public is not following those guidelines, and recommendations with no penalties don't work. We've had a lack of leadership from the president nationally and from the governor as far as their actual action. They talk a good game, but their actions don't express good public policy. They've reopened the economy without mandatory requirements, and that's led to a big surge, as you indicated, Mayor, 50% in the last couple of weeks. And there's no reason to think that that upward trend is going to change unless our conduct changes. Leaders have hoped, they've prayed that citizens would do the right thing for themselves and to protect their neighbors and their family members, but selfish, inconsiderate individuals have not done the right thing, and that's caused the virus to go up, and it will continue to go up. Requiring masks and social distancing is really the only way to effectively keep our economy open and protect the public health. So I'm going to request that you not amend your declaration, but at your next council meeting, you pass an ordinance and put it in so it has the force of law. You require masks by all employees and businesses in Edmond, and you require masks by all the public members when they're in public places. And it's not a recommendation, it's a requirement. And you can't have a recommendation without some kind of penalty. People don't understand that. And it's not worked. It's already proven that it's not working. So I'd suggest the first violation, you get a $200 fine. The second one, you get a $500 fine. And the third one, you get a $1,000 fine and/or 1 to 10 days in the city jail. If COVID is a health problem and you're serious about doing something both to eliminate the health problem as best we can, which keeps the economy going, which we all want, then the only way to do it is to really have an ordinance and have some penal requirement and consequence for bad conduct. And that's exactly what it is. It's bad conduct. Compliance must be required. Selfish, inconsiderate actions have to be punished. We've tried the donkey with the carrot. It has not worked, and it will not work. So it's time to apply the stick to the donkey.
Thank you. Next.
One last thing, Mayor. Edmond has always been at the forefront of major issues in the state of Oklahoma. We've been a leader, and I'd like for you as a council to act as a leader in this particular case, because doing the same thing again and again, as you well know, and hoping for some other result is not going to achieve what you need to achieve.
Kendra, do you wish to speak? Okay.
Mayor, we have 15 people from across the street that are wanting to speak as of right now. We've sent the first 5 over, so we'll be ready to bring them in.
Okay.
At the appropriate time.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to speak, please.
Please come forward, give your name and your address.
My name is Jennifer Webster. Yes, Josh, you replied to my email. Yes, Mr. Massey, you replied to my email. My business address that I just recently took over in Edmond, the Real Cafe, and opened another Conscious Community Co-op, which is an organic grocery store and a locally sourced cafe. The address is 2851 West Edmond Road. I'm going to try and be calm because honestly, I don't even know that we're living in America after hearing that speech. I've heard a lot tonight of increasing numbers. What nobody's asking the questions of is, or acknowledging, is that sure, the cases are increasing, but the recovery is also increasing and the deaths are decreasing. The CDC has changed its numbers on multiple occasions. It's like, what day do we wake up in with them? As a business owner, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I've endured for taking a stance for freedom. In my business, my first business, which is outside of city limits, the original co-op, is on Waterloo and Coltrane. She has been open for over a year, servicing the public, providing organic, healthy, things that actually boost your immune system, things that actually keep you healthy. 2 months ago, my business started getting hammered because of my stance. A stance that I made vocal because my business was being interrupted. I'm not against masks. I believe in freedom of choice. And I think it's ironic that we live in a country that we fight all the time about pro-choice, and most people are fine with that, except when it comes to mask wearing. And then it's mandated and penalty, and I go to jail. I have patrons that shop all day, every day in the masks. I have those same patrons that actually tell me, we come here because we feel safe, because of your stance with community. I don't force my staff to wear a mask. I don't wear a mask. If they want to wear one, they can, because guess what? That's the beauty of America, is freedom to choose. We hear all the time the propaganda, we're in this together, hashtag we're in this together, but stay 6 feet apart, social distance. That doesn't sound like together to me. That sounds like alienation. That sounds like intimidation. Just last night, I got an email saying, you need to shut your mouth. You're ruining it for everyone else. You just need to shut up and fall in line. I will not, because I believe in freedom. We are looking at numbers, and they are skewed. We are not asking the right questions, and I believe all of you gentlemen, when you said you didn't come here tonight to shut the businesses down, but you can shut a business down without shutting a business down. And what I am enduring in my business, and I would be willing to bet some of these other restaurant folks are enduring, is the shaming and the absolute trolling and violent attacks on our business pages, to the point that we have to spend half our day taking negative comments off, defending ourselves. I take measures. We have 2 UV lights. You know what UV lights do? They kill germs and viruses. When you walk in my door, they're hanging above the wall. I diffuse, we clean all the time, but because I choose to take precautions differently, we are being attacked daily, hourly. You can shut a business down without shutting a business down.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Can I just say one more thing? It's not just a mask. It's about the tearing apart of the very fiber of America. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Casey, can you bring our first?
She's got her hand up.
Do you want to have?
I'm sorry.
Let's have everyone in here, and then we have
Okay.
a lot here.
You want to speak? Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see your name. Come on up and tell us your name and address.
Hello, my name is Marla Hill, and I am a business owner, and my business is at 209 French Park Drive, Suite 103, right on 2nd Street here. So thank you very much for serving Edmond. Thank you so much, and I can't imagine the pressure that you're under right now. The reason why I stepped up here is because I wanted to bring us back to the real numbers of, I heard 10 deaths have occurred in Edmond, which is very tragic. But I would like to ask you, how many deaths have happened on the roads? Have there been 10 deaths since COVID began on the roads? Do we still allow people to drive on the roads? How many deaths have happened from the flu? Do we still allow people to go out and come and go? We have been teaching our children forever about washing hands and all that. I understand the fear of COVID and spreading that fear and spreading the virus. But my concern about mask wearing is how it spreads the fear. And my business is a business-to-business business. However, because predominantly the businesses that we see are banking, credit unions, and churches, and a lot of them have been shut down, or they have shut their lobbies, which impacts us. And the impact of wearing masks, I believe, cultivates this fear, and that what we must do is all accept responsibility for our health. Are we going to start fining people for not taking their vitamin C? Did you take your vitamin C? Have you taken your zinc? Are you overweight? If you're overweight, you are putting yourself at risk, and you're putting me at risk because you are overweight. And that's a violation of my rights, and you should be fined. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say. Please consider this moving forward.
Thank you.
Krista,
Ms. Jones?
Good evening, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to visit with the council and the mayor and staff. Krista Jones, 8150 Bald Eagle Road, Jones, Oklahoma. I'm in Ward 2. Business owner for 38 years. I am a dentist, and the primary mode of transmission, which we've already heard multiple times and everyone should know, is droplets. Okay, aerosolization. In my dental office and in all dental offices, it's a prime spot. We have been using universal precautions for years. Since the AIDS, I was on the first state of Oklahoma AIDS task force in 1982. So we have been doing things that can control transmission of diseases in our practices for years. We are now having to do that in public spaces. And the way we do that is by mask wearing and social distancing. And so it's not only our health, but everyone else's health. And I disagree with public shaming in all the forms. I take it as a means of respect for my other citizens in the state, for my other humans on the planet. And I think that when right now we have laws and mandates for seatbelt wearing. Okay, I remember back in the mid-'70s, that was not mandated. How many lives have we saved with seatbelts? Right now, our restaurants are mandated to wear hair nets so that hair doesn't fall in our food. If the restaurants and our staff members in restaurants wore masks, perhaps their droplets wouldn't fall in our food, or their droplets wouldn't be in the air that we breathe when we go into restaurants. I think Oklahoma City does have a good plan. I think their mayor is forward visioning in trying to protect the citizens of the Oklahoma City, and I would like for our mayor and council to protect our citizens of Edmond, even if it is just for the restaurants. But I personally agree with Mr. Shadid in that I think that we should be requiring our citizens to wear it in all public places and in our businesses, and all the staff members for the businesses. Thank you very much.
You know, folks, Ms. Jones was involved in one of the first two cases. Josh, you were involved with your choir group, and you had a party that you were involved in.
February 27th in Oklahoma City at the Oklahoma City Golf and Country Club, where at that point in time, we were not able to get accurate testing, as you all might remember, and there were only 4 people that actually got tested, and of those 4, 1 died, but there were 40 people in that group, in my friends, that had flu-like symptoms that were unable to get tested. And we could only assume that they were COVID positive. And those were only the ones that were symptomatic carriers, all of the ones that could have been asymptomatic carriers to infect others. And that's where masks create a huge difference.
Thank
So
you very much,
I
Dr.
appreciate, and my own aunt has died with COVID, and I have 3 cousins that have been diagnosed with COVID. So it affects me very personally, and I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Is your comments going to be any different than your friends? Okay, let's get it up here very quickly. Thank you. Your name?
Leslie Mahan. Leslie Mahan,
Okay, thank you, Leslie. What's your address?
16304 Seminole Point Place.
Okay,
Thank you for your time, Mayor and Council. It's just a mask. It's just 2 weeks. It's just until we get a vaccine. It's just a few side effects. It's just a bracelet. It's just to let others know you're safe to be around. It's just an app. It's just to let others know who you've been in contact with. It's just a few more months. It's just a chip. It's just for medical information and for paying for things. It's just for travel. It's just so you can get your driver's license. It's just a few more years. It's just a clump of cells. It's just the undesirables. It's just the Jews. It's just the Christians. It's just the people who don't think like us. It's just is not a valid argument or reason to accept what the authorities are dishing out. It is a path paved to communism and hell on earth. Thank you for your time.
Casey, can you bring in the next speaker, please? How you doing, sir?
Good.
Would you tell us your name and your address?
Michael Hapgood, I live at 2309 Saddleback
Okay,
Drive, I guess. Good evening. Whether the turnout's based on a rumor or whatever, I think I'm pretty warmed by the fact that people are showing up, and I'm glad that people are involved. And it's good to see the community. I've only lived in here, lived in Edmond for 11 months. I grew up in Oklahoma, Air Force, went around the world. Now I'm back home. So one of the issues I have with this whole debate that's going on is the numbers, the right numbers aren't being talked about. And I know you guys have heard this, but just to put this in perspective, on May 1st, the positive rate of tests was 11%. Today is 4.3%. The fatality on May 1st was 6%. Today it's 2.4%. Before, on June 1st, we had taken 206,000 tests. As of July 1st, we've taken 355,000 tests. So we almost doubled the amount of tests that we've administered in the state of Oklahoma in the last month as compared to the entire crisis. Now, what's important about that is the CDC they have a neat little double asterisk on their count, and it states, sorry, my notes are it states that confirmed cases do not necessarily mean new individuals. So an individual who goes and tests, and we were going to see a spike anyway because all the elective procedures and things like that, people are going and getting tests when they're asymptomatic so that they can go on and get their cancer scan, and then they pop positive. Then they go back in 3 days to try to get that negative test in order to get their scan, and they're still positive. That counts as 2 cases, even though it's 1 person. So I also have an issue, just pure semantics, on the reasoning why we're seeing this uptick. We were told 6 to 8 weeks is the incubation that we'll know on the deaths. So, and the incubation is supposed to be 2 weeks. Then we'll see 4 weeks, but 6 to 8 weeks when we see this. On May 30th and May 31st, there were 1,000 individuals at the Oklahoma City Police Station at midnight. On June 2nd, there was I don't know the number, but there was another protest in downtown Oklahoma City. On June 3rd, there was another protest that ended up in being 50 arrests. On June 19th, there was another protest. On June 30th, June 12th, June 20th. We're going to see a spike. I don't disagree with the protest. I don't want anybody to take that. I'm glad the protest is happening. It's all right. But you can't take that many people and congregate them and say somehow the virus doesn't spread. Now, Oklahoma City, I understand, and Oklahoma County is concerned, but I can tell you as my wife is a procurement individual for Integris Health, Deaconess Hospital still sits empty, and it is dedicated to COVID patients. So right now you're starting to see a spike in those hospital beds, like at Baptist Integris, where they're doing elective procedures, dealing with normal heart things, normal things that happen. You get that amount, but Deaconess is the equivalent of the USS Comfort in New York. It has no patients in it. So we're ready for a spike, and it's still not really here as far as hospitalizations and deaths. So my whole concern about all this is we keep talking about case. We double the amount of testing in a month. We have incidents that will increase the spread. And then now we're also worried about children. Everything I've seen says children are asymptomatic and have low risk of spread. And by the way, just in case everybody doesn't know this, we're all going to get it, right? You're either going to get it from somebody, off of something, or through the end of a needle. We're all going to get it. Right. The whole point was to slow the spread, to flatten the curve. And if you go to that COVID-19 website, you can see we're not even close to hitting any of our numbers as far as ventilators, ICU beds, hospital beds, or any of those matters. We're not even close to that. Now, I understand that you guys with City Council, and I appreciate everything you do. I really do. I appreciate the deluge of things you've got or whatever. But I want to tell you something. My mom and dad are still alive, and I don't need another one. Okay, I don't need somebody deciding that you're going to fine me if I don't wear a mask. I wear the mask out of respect. Even though the container that you buy from the store specifically says will not stop coronavirus. Why? Because coronavirus is the common cold. If it won't stop the common cold, how is it supposed to stop COVID-19 other than to make us supposedly feel better? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Who's our next speaker? Emily? Okay. How are you doing? What is your name,
Hello,
ma'am?
good, thank you. I'm Connie Bear. My address
Can
is
you say your name again? I'm sorry.
Connie Bear.
Okay.
Address is 514 East Coffee Creek. Sorry, I have problems speaking. Here in Edmond, and I just want to thank you guys for your work, for your service to us, and what you've done thus far in giving us choice and making recommendations it's exemplary. We're all in full support of that. What we do not support is having a mandate where we have to wear something, where we have to do something against our wishes that is detrimental to our health. Wearing a mask, breathing in your carbon dioxide, it's poison. It is not recommended for an extended amount of time by anybody in the medical community. I have a family member that works at a COVID testing facility, and she tells us, she comes home and tells us that people are coming in by the droves for testing now, by the droves. That is going to make your case numbers spike. And that is part of the problem, part of the fear-mongering that is, causing people to want to do things, scaring people into do things, scaring people into accepting things that otherwise they would not accept. And I just want to speak for everybody that doesn't want to wear the mask. We don't want to be held to standards that we don't wish to participate in.
What kind of business are you in, ma'am?
Landscaping.
Okay. You work outdoors?
Yes, indoors, outdoors.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone in the back row? Emily? Ms. Walters, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank
Good.
you very much. Good to see you, Mayor and council members. I'm Emily Walters, and my address is 4832 Deerfield Drive in Edmond, Oklahoma. And thank you for being receptive. Thank you for the job that you're doing. I don't envy your position. I come as a wife, a mother, a business owner, a member of this community. And I know that there are a lot of very strong viewpoints, and you're going to hear a lot of them. And the one that I felt I had to come and state as part of public record is that all my life, all our lives, people make decisions that we don't like. And it's really annoying, and we disagree with them. But that is their decision. And just because I disagree with someone else or they disagree with me doesn't mean that they can make me do something I don't choose to do. Maybe we should make different choices. Maybe we should have a better version of what we think is best. But it's okay to disagree, and it's okay for me to make that choice for myself. No one should think that they can or try to make that choice for me. I am not anti-mask. I am pro-freedom of choice. And I will remain that way. I teach my children that, and I represent my business that way, and I appreciate the professionals that are in the medical community. I am not a dentist. I am not a doctor. But if I were, it would be wise to wear a mask when I'm working. And if I choose to wear it whenever I'm out, then I can wear it then as well. But freedom of choice is a cornerstone of our society, of our culture, and of our country. It's freedom of choice. I am not anti-mask. I am pro-freedom of choice. And I respect the professionals. I always will. But I am a citizen, and I am responsible for the decisions that I make. The other day, I was looking at what's the allergy report on the weather. And, it says, oh, tree pollen's low or grass pollen is high. And you know what it says underneath? Recommended. These are things that are recommended for your health. And, I should probably listen to that recommendation. But then it's my decision whether to act on it or not. Thank you for hearing us, and I just hope that everyone remembers that it is freedom of choice. And no one can make that choice for me. Yes. And no one will make that choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily. Mr. Grant, you wish to speak? Okay, okay.
Good evening. Thank you guys very much. I want to also tell you my appreciation, Josh, because you and I do the same thing, so I know how busy I am, and I know you're sacrificing a lot to be here, and I really do appreciate that.
Would you state your name for the record?
Nathan Walters.
Okay.
I also live at 4832 Deerfield Drive. I also own a business in Edmond, 130 North Broadway, Suite 232, right down the street from you. I got, same thing. I'm going to follow up a little bit. I want to touch points on something that's bothered me, and it started at the beginning when you guys continued to talk about, well, Mayor Holt has said this, and since we border him, we need to think about those things as well. We also border Mexico. We don't do what Mexico does. We also, as a country, border Canada. We also don't think about all the decisions they're going to do, and that's because we're America. And here, I chose to live in Edmond. Choice. I chose to live in Edmond, okay? And I chose to go to the ballots and vote for my city council members to use my viewpoint, not yours, okay? Because you guys are here to represent us, and you're here to protect our freedoms per the Constitution, per the Declaration of Independence. We send you here to do these things, and I just want to be heard that, hey, mask most likely work. And I appreciate you. And I appreciate you coming up here and telling us that. But we cannot mandate something. Cannot mandate these masks. So something that I had in my notes is something I read, and I'll let it go, but one of my favorite presidents of all time was Calvin Coolidge. I don't know if any of you guys know him very much, but he led us probably the greatest time in our history, the Roaring '20s. And Calvin Coolidge used to take naps in the middle of the day as our president and would wake up and say, "Is the country still here?" Because it's not his job as government to run this country, it's ours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. I think that's the first that we get a quote from Calvin Coolidge at our city council meeting.
Chris Anderson, 113 South Broadway here in Edmond. I'm going to try not to repeat anybody, so I'll just go over a few statistics. Oklahoma County has an infection rate of less than 0.5% and a death rate of 0.008%. So I'm still just shocked that we're here discussing this virus that has such small numbers. The other thing I've heard is if we just reduce occupancy to 50%, will that really hurt any business? Well, I'm sure that if all of you took 50% of your income, that's going to change your lifestyle. That's going to change how you support your family. So that's not something that I think we should do either. And I don't think you guys are here to vote on any of those things. I think we're all just here talking about what we don't want to happen in the future. My problem with masks is I think they work if they're used correctly, but hardly anybody uses them correctly. I mean, most everybody that I can see on camera on this side has touched it, moved it, wiped their eyes, and so it defeats the purpose. If you require restaurant owners to wear them, but the patrons aren't wearing them, and you're sitting next to somebody, or the waitress is moving her mask around and then touching your, it just, if everybody had the N95 masks and nobody touched their face and everybody washed their hands, they'd work. But what we have, in my opinion, doesn't really do anything. So there's no point in even trying to implement it because they're not being used correctly. And I know a few people have talked about Mayor Holt, and I see where people are coming from there. I understand that we border Oklahoma City. I understand they're a lot bigger than we are, but we voted for you all, not for Mayor Holt. So we want you all to vote what's best for Edmond. And if that means doing things differently than they do, then it does. Back in March when this all started, we didn't know much about this. So we all kind of went along with the plan. But I think now as more testing happens, death rates drop, we learn more about it, we can do things different. We can be Edmond. We don't have to be Oklahoma City. I've also heard a few times that we follow the governor's rules and Holt's rules, or mandates, or whatever you want to call them. Those are different. Every time Governor Stitt says something, Holt says something a little bit different, so we can't follow both of them. I mean, they're saying different things. As many people have said, I appreciate you all trying to protect us from ourselves, but we aren't asking people to not smoke. We're not asking the person with hypertension to not get the double cheeseburger and milkshake. We aren't asking people to stay home when the flu spikes. I don't want to get COVID. I don't want my family to get COVID, but I also try not to eat fast food. I don't smoke. I try not to do things that are unhealthy. And I'm just asking you all to let us make decisions for ourselves instead of telling us what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. How many more, Casey?
What's that?
How many more?
I think we've got 5 here and then another 5 after that.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Come forward, ma'am, please.
Hi, Shelpa Abbott, 3901 Hunters Creek Road, Edmond, Oklahoma. Not a business owner, just a concerned citizen and an employee. I am a scientist by degree. I'm an engineer and have a master's in environmental engineering as well. The main thing I would like to, I don't want to reiterate the important points that some of the other people have made, especially the gentleman before me, that masks, there is no scientific study on the different masks that we're using and how they do prevent or don't prevent COVID. And I think that before we start talking about mandates of any kind, that there needs to be scientific studies and scientific data that you can point us to before you mandate it. Recommending masks, that's fine. That's consistent with the federal government, the CDC, and our state government recommendations. So I would like to also point out that I'm very concerned about Mayor Holt referencing OSHA and using OSHA enforcement schemes against OKC businesses, pitting neighbors against neighbors by having people call 911 if they see particularly violating offenses. I think that undermines the very fabric of our society. I would also like to point out that, I don't know if you've noticed that, yes, I mean, the numbers going up, that's clearly, for any person that understands any kind of math or data, the numbers will go up as more tests are being done. But the key points are, as the other gentleman explained, the number of hospitalizations and fatalities have gone down. So it does not make sense to start getting more aggressive with mandates when the numbers are starting to go in our favor. I would also like to point out that the CDC suggested last week that COVID is about to lose its status as an epidemic. That is because the death rates have fallen to the point that COVID no longer represents the risk people once thought. I can refer you to the opening paragraph of CDC's weekly report for the week ending June 27th. This has become a highly politicized event, and it's being mandated and forced down on the freedoms of our inherent society. Thank you.
Thank you. We had some new people arrive. Are any speakers in this group? Okay. You would come forward and give your name and your address.
Hi, good evening. My name is Stephanie Tolson, and I own a boxing gym here in Edmond. It's called Rough House Boxing and Fitness. The address is 115 West 15th, Suite D as in dog. I don't live very far from here either. I'm just right over there on 4th and Boulevard. You're my ward guy. You're my council member guy. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
Whoa. Your mom.
Oh, my bad.
You can box.
Listen, okay. All right, I'll be everybody. So, much like a majority of the speakers that have come up here, I also am not anti-mask, but am also pro-choice of being able to decide if I'd like to do that. In my boxing gym, as you can imagine, it's nothing but close contact, right? I haven't had a single person test positive for COVID. And that's because I ask people to wash their hands, disinfect their equipment, use good reason. If you think you're sick or might be sick or have been around somebody sick, don't come to the gym. I also have these big giant bay doors. I can open the door, so it's basically like being outside. I have a lot of compromised people that do come to the gym, still not positive for COVID. I don't require masks, of course. I don't ask them to wear masks. If somebody would like to wear a mask, they're more than welcome to. I've had one person come in with a mask on, and after about 6 or 7 burpees, they decided they really didn't need the mask after all. They're still negative for COVID. As a business owner, I became self-employed, and I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's because I don't like people telling me what to do. I can be compliant when it's time to be compliant, when it's something that I don't mind. I'm not willing to box with a mask on, so I don't want to ask anybody else to. If you mandate masks, to me you're implying that you know better than me. And I don't think that's the case, because I still have no positive COVID cases at my gym. I've had people go and get tested, and no one has tested positive. I think that what I'm able to control in my own facility is enough to keep my people safe. If they don't want to come, if they don't feel comfortable, I am not offended by that. I support their decision. I stand behind their decision. Media sensationalism has done a fantastic job of making us all very scared of COVID, and I understand that and I respect it. So if they don't want to come, that's fine. If they do want to come, I want them to be able to come as they are, okay? Thank you so much for not talking about closing businesses today. There was somebody had brought up something a little earlier that I would love, if you guys don't mind, I'll be quick. I believe it was the city manager who had talked about people being able to request time to pay for their utilities. I don't know if you guys have ever had to make a payment plan with Edmond Electric. I have. It's okay, I mean, at least they're giving you something. It's not very lenient. I think during a time of a pandemic when people are losing their income, I think it's unfair to offer a payment plan that you have half up front and then 1 week later you pay the other half. I don't know that a lot of people, especially right now, can come up with that. So I would urge you guys to maybe get with the city manager or get with Edmond Electric and maybe come up with something that might be just a little bit more feasible, especially since the Oklahoma Employment Security Commission hasn't been able to line up with everything just quite yet. So there's a lot of people still waiting for help. So please consider that. And then because I am a small business owner, I've been in business for 5 years, so I'm very new. It's tough. I know all of you up here own businesses or have owned a business, and so you know how difficult it can be. Just think back when your business was 5 years old, how easy it was to pay your electric bill or your gas bill or your utility bill. City of Edmond does not offer payment arrangements for commercial businesses. I've emailed the City of Edmond or Edmond Electric multiple times requesting that be changed, and I've gotten no response back. So I would please encourage you guys to just consider maybe allowing payment arrangements on utilities. Number one, for just regular civilians, and then number two, for commercial businesses as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
Anyone else in the back over here? Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay. What's your name again?
My name is Courtney Gregg, and I have a business at 405 West 2nd Street here in Edmond. And thank you, Mayor Holt and the council members, for all your hard work and
Well, you can
painstaking
thank him in Oklahoma
process.
City, but okay.
I'm sorry. I had it written down. Mayor O'Neill. And actually, I met you the other day when we did the prayer group meeting out there in front of the
Oh, yes, thank you very much
And
for
I
being
appreciate
there.
you coming and supporting the police department. That's and officers.
You did a wonderful job running that program. This is the lady that was chair, organized it, and we really appreciate your efforts doing that.
Well,
It was very well done.
That's very kind of you to say, since I called you the wrong name. Thank you very
Okay.
much. I'm glad to see a little bit of
Don't you
levity.
think they look alike, though?
Huh?
They look pretty similar, don't they? They look alike.
Embarrassingly enough, I think I
Mayor
realized,
Holt will think you've got.
I think
Get
I
you
wore the
two
exact
together
same
for a
shirt, so it's
picture.
easier to
Yeah.
identify. I got to be honest, I felt like I was over in the overflow because I got here late like normal, and I got to say there's a little bit of tension. It just felt like a little bit of tension starting out. I get you guys were battling some online nonsense this weekend, and I'm sure that was very inconvenient, as it was the 4th of July. And you wanted to be with your family and not dealing with nonsense. I get that 100%. But I think the awesome part is that people showed up to be part of their local governmental processes. And I realize, I did not realize, but I do now because it was stated many times, that you guys have been meeting weekly. And that is phenomenal. And Edmond is a great city. I used to be an employee of this city. It's a great city, and I advocate for people to be employed by this city because it is really awesome. But I think that it's time, the world has changed a lot since March. We've experienced a lot of changes, and COVID is sometimes seen as the least of them. And I think people are ready to stand up and be heard and not just let things happen. And I think that's why people are here. I don't think it's a defensive thing. So I just want to say thank you to everybody and see it as a breath of fresh air, that the people want to be involved as opposed to just allowing things to happen. I will say that I run a nonprofit here in Edmond, and we've been here for 14 years, and Edmond's been great to us. We have stayed open during a lot of these restrictions, serving people. We serve babies and children and women with anything you need for that child, from birth, while the woman is pregnant, all the way up. That's neither here nor there. The thing is, we've been able to make some adjustments based on the comfort level of my volunteers, which are mainly women in their 60s. So what they would consider a high-risk group. We've been able to serve hundreds of children and families, making very few modifications. We wanted to do it to the comfort level of our volunteers and of our clients, but my clients don't come in wearing masks. My volunteers started. Everybody's trying to figure it out. There is no hard and fast facts. We all know that. The things that were presented tonight as evidence are the same things I can look up on my computer. I mean, I appreciate whoever came up with that information, but I can read it myself. And I am publicly educated, so I can figure it out just like most of the other publicly educated people here and make my own determinations on safety. And we did that. We've served hundreds of children in the metropolitan area, because we don't just serve Edmond, but we serve Edmond also. And although we've had no incidences of positive tests, I'm not claiming that we have anything going on that anybody else doesn't. I'm just saying we've done it to people's comfort level, and we've been able to do that because there were not mandates in place. We were able to do what we needed to do, serve as we needed to serve, just like any business can, and not be worried about some sort of mandate or restriction that would keep a baby from getting diapers on its bottom, that would keep a mother from getting what she needs to care for that baby. Been able to do that. And it's because you guys have had level heads. You guys have not been quick to judge. You have not been quick to overanalyze or underanalyze. All these people came in today to speak. Some people agree with, some people not. But we're here. We are letting our voices be heard. We're doing it civilly. There were no fights over there yet. It's good. Maybe not in the parking lot. I don't know. What I'm saying is, we appreciate it. Thank you. Please keep going this way. We will get through this. There is hope. But when people start feeling boxed in, their only option is to want to bust out of it, because everybody is looking at the same thing, making different decisions.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you guys very much. I appreciate your time.
Larry, I think a lot of people in here are getting a little bit warm, and since you're the master of the thermostat, do you know how to turn the heater on a little bit? Before we have people passing out on us.
Everybody knows somebody that does.
I'm not a big fan of our quote state-of-the-art system. Hopefully we can get something.
Do you wish to speak, Nick?
Turns out you had the controls, Nick.
I don't know what to do with it, just like on Larry. I might have turned the heat on.
This should work, I think.
It keep going.
We really turned on the heat, ma'am, so you ought to be done in 2 minutes.
There's air here now, so. All right, good afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Angie Waters. I live in Ward 3.
What's your last name, first name?
Angie Waters.
Okay, we've talked.
We have.
Okay.
We have. In fact, I've emailed all of you. I think all of you have emailed me back at some point, and I appreciate that. I didn't expect that. I've emailed in the past, and I didn't get a response sometimes, and so it was very encouraging to me. I just wanted to say, as you meet today, and I wrote down this so I don't get long-winded, as you meet today to consider what, if any, amendments should be made to the current declaration of emergency, I'm here to urge you to protect the individual rights of the citizens of Edmond by not increasing restrictions in any way, shape, or form, and to support and protect each citizen's hard-won independence, which as a nation we just celebrated this weekend. The current declaration of emergency already provides many freedoms, including a recommendation but not a requirement, to minimize time spent in crowded environments, to follow guidelines for physical distancing, and in my experience, that's already happening. People are going where they're comfortable going, they're not going where they're not comfortable going, and it's their decision, as it should be. Additionally, summer camps can open. It's their choice if they want to open, it's parents' choice if they want to send their children. It's their decision. Businesses can operate with unrestricted staffing at their work sites. Business owners can decide if they want to fully staff up, if they want to require masks. If they don't, they can decide how to run their own businesses. It's their decision, and it should be. Businesses are also free to, let's see, I did that one. This is already happening. Some businesses are requiring masks, and the people that are comfortable with that are going to those businesses. People like me who aren't are choosing not to patronize those businesses. That's their right to have a mask. It's my right not to have a mask. I'm comfortable with that. There are businesses that are not requiring a mask. People like me are flocking to those businesses. That's a free market economy. It's a free society. It's how it's supposed to work. Let the market take care of itself. Continue to spread the word on the unbiased information on the medical situation that you can find, if that indeed exists. I'm not really sure what's unbiased these days. Everybody's numbers are a little different. I have the same numbers that you do that show Edmond is not in a state of crisis right now.
But as word came this past week in an increased number of cases overall, but not in number of deaths, which is far more important, that's the number we should be considering, people voluntarily put on masks if they wanted to. I saw an exponential increase in mask wearers this week at the grocery store. Somebody said earlier that they weren't seeing masks at the grocery store. I was one of about 6 people who didn't at the grocery store. People are choosing what they want to do. A restaurant, at church in my neighborhood, people who wanted a mask did that. They chose that. It was their decision, and it should be. For people like me, however, who didn't and don't wear a mask for personal as well as medical reasons, which frankly are no one's business but my own, the decision to mask up was mine as well, as it should be, or not to mask up was mine. I've already shared data with each one of you regarding numbers of cases, deaths, recoveries in Edmond. You heard that again tonight, as well as examples of other cities who've maintained strict shutdowns and mandatory mask requirements who have not succeeded in eradicating the virus from their communities. This virus isn't going away, no matter how much we hide under the bed or wear a mask or a hazmat suit to the mall. The only way to live with it is to live with it, and for each person to take charge of and responsibility for their own state of health in whatever way they deem best. As for me, I consult with my healthcare provider for her recommendations, but at the end of the day, I'm still free to make my own healthcare choices in this country. No one can tell me I must have surgery if I choose not to, even if they decide I need it for my or anyone else's survival. Likewise, no one should be able to tell me I must wear a mask, even if they decide I need it for my or anyone else's survival. It is and must remain a personal choice. That's as it should be. Even my own doctor can't treat me without my consent. I have not and will not abdicate that right to anyone else, to any person, to any entity or government authority. So I just urge you, along with a lot of folks here tonight, not to bow to pressure from anyone, including the larger cities like Oklahoma City and their leadership, to implement any additional restrictions to the state of emergency for Edmond. Personally, I believe we should relax some of the restrictions we still have in place, such as hospital visitation and ending the destructive and damning, deadly, I'm sorry, this is passion, nursing homes. People can't see their people in their people in nursing homes. They can't see their families. People are dying because they are dying of loneliness. They're dying of a broken heart. Suffice it to say, for tonight, I'm urging you not to add any restrictions to the city of Edmond. Please let us continue to exercise our independence. Don't add restrictions. Consider easing the ones we already have and let people choose. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I share your concern about our senior citizens that are in the nursing home.
Thank you.
Really sad. Who's next? Okay.
Hi, my name's Mary. I'm an essential worker in the city of Edmond. I work down at the
What's your address, Mary?
1901 Boulevard.
Is that where you work?
Yes, it is.
Where do you live?
I live actually between Luther and Jones.
Okay. So you're just a part-time worker here in town?
No, I'm a full-time worker.
Full-time worker, okay.
I've been with this company since last September. I enjoy the people, and I took great fear when this COVID thing first came out. I'm going to tell you a little story. My husband died in 2014. I self-isolated for many years. It was by choice. But when it was mandated on society to withdraw, to keep yourself at a safe distance from other humans, I started feeling a little stress. Unnecessarily. I work with a lot of people. No one's been ill. We practice safe distances. I can't even speak. We try to be safe with each other at work. Our bodies naturally expel toxins. When you're wearing a mask on your face, you're holding those toxins right back up to re-inhale them. That is not healthy. There's a lot of information recently just spoken at this podium about the whole scenario, about the numbers. It's just not adding up to me. I do have common sense. I have seen what's going on in this world. I do not believe a mask. You're going to have to wear a spacesuit to keep from being infected with this COVID thing. I have served in a restaurant. A mask is going to do nothing for your server, but because they're going to be touching it the whole time. They're going to have to wash their hands every time they take an order, take out a plate, bust a table. It's just crazy. We've got to not put so much pressure on the worker and society in general. We've got protesters that are congregating, and I don't see them regulating them. It's just amazing what's going on in our society today. I don't see it as healthy for anyone. I think the sooner we can get back to norm, the better for everyone.
Sure hope so. Thank you. I tip heavy, too. Who's next?
Evening, gentlemen. Thank you for having us here. My name is Tim Finley. I am a recent re-addition to Oklahoma. I live at 2825 Buckland Road. You could say that my family and I are refugees of sorts. After serving the military, got out and became a contractor in the Maryland, Baltimore, D.C. area. In February, I was fortunate enough to get a job that said I could work remote anywhere I wanted to, literally anywhere in America. And I chose to come to Edmond. I've never actually lived in Edmond, but I've lived around in Oklahoma several times. And I chose Edmond out of all 50 states and of all places in Oklahoma here, because I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I believe this is the best place in America to raise her. That being said, I'm here to talk about reason. And having led in combat, I can tell you that the quietest, calmest voices are the ones that people turn to in a time of crisis. And obviously, we don't just have a crisis with COVID. We have multiple conflating crises at the same time. And so a lot of people coming up here tonight are talking about some of the things that they're impassioned by. I'm here to say I feel a lot of those passions, and I am distinctly independent and distinctly turn to constitutional values in times like this. And I will say that rights precede government. Yes. And that government is instituted by us to protect those rights. And here's to say that we put people like you in the positions that you are in to ensure that our rights are not infringed upon, but also that we are willing to work with you in reason. And I will also say that some of the things that have been proposed are unreasonable. That is to say that as an equestrian who literally holds a world record for riding horses, I will tell you that the laziest and worst horsemen go for the crop. And I will tell you that the best horsemen achieve buy-in from the animal that they're riding. And our leaders, as has been pointed out, have oftentimes failed to achieve buy-in. And that our rights do come with responsibilities that we need to take. And it's not to say that masks are unreasonable. They are reasonable. And the argument to the people behind me, if I were to make that, would be wear the masks if you so choose, and realize that your actions do have externalities in this crisis. And that if you do care, and if you do wish to responsibly uphold your own rights, then make that choice for yourself. But the moment we start instituting mandates, then we are violating John Stuart Mill, we are violating John Locke, we are violating all the things that our country is based upon. Why? Because we have conflating crises that are raising the temperature. And I would encourage everyone here to consider those ideas, to bring the temperature down, and everybody behind me to do the same. And to say, for this crisis, let's get numbers and science first before we start instituting any sort of mandates, and then realize that ultimately we as the individuals are responsible, and not you. And that's really all, except for one more thing. Calvin Coolidge, no man was ever honored for what he received. Honor was a reward for what he gave. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Quote number 2.
Was that Calvin Coolidge again? I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Emilian, and I live in Edmond. I'm a lifelong resident, been here since I was born, 701 Tacoma Bridge Court here in Edmond. I have not left this city, so I am a lifelong resident, and I love this city. First and foremost, I want to thank you all. Thank you so much for listening to us, and praise God that we live in Oklahoma and not someplace like New York or California. So I'm just blessed to be a part of this state where we have a lot more freedom than we're seeing in other states.
I want to start first by saying my credentials. I'm a board-certified holistic health practitioner. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist, and I'm also a certified fitness instructor. Those things only matter right now because it's the basic principle of health that I come here maybe from a health professional standpoint. One thing that I think we're missing in this discussion, no matter what's happening, is we're lacking the education and leadership on discussing true health in this country. That should be our first line of offense and defense when we're talking about what's the best route we should go. We don't have that leadership. No one's discussing what type of things we should be doing for our health to help us combat what needs to be combated for our bodies to protect itself against any virus. We're surrounded by viruses, pathogens, bacteria, fungi. They're all around us. You cannot avoid them, and you cannot live in a bubble. It has something to do with if you were to compare the terrain theory versus germ theory. The best way I can describe the difference between the two is you take a bagged fish, you place it inside of a fish bowl, and then you have another fish that you place inside the fish bowl. Which is better? Some believe the bagged fish, and others believe clean the fish tank. So there's two different theories here, and you can't say that one person's right and one person is wrong. It's simply two theories that are different, and we have to respect those that believe one way or the other on those two theories. My big main thing that I wanted to come here is talking about discussion with children. I have an emphasis in working with children's nutrition. I have a kids wellness book that I have written. It is on Amazon, and so my focus is kids. One thing that I'm very concerned about this is, let's say we do mandate masks down the road, that's eventually going to go down to schools. There's states that are already talking about mandating masks for school kids. The psychological effect, fearing other peers, not understanding what's going on, that is not building a healthy child. There's behavior issues that come with that, let alone we're not talking about ADHD children with autism, sensory processing disorder. How will they affect and relate to people that are covered with their face? How will they interact with their peers if they are forced to wear a mask day in and day out at school? That is a bad storm waiting to happen. I also will say that recently I helped a family outdoors that had their child double masked. It was a 4-year-old who put 2 masks over there because they were afraid, they were not educated, they were not aware. They had no idea that her oxygen sats had dropped. They were simply just trying to follow protocol that a mask was the better opportunity, the best thing for them. The child was overheated and oxygen stats were too low. It's simple things like that that I believe once we start mandating or requiring this, people will not follow it appropriately and bad things like that will happen. I recently came into a situation 2 months ago with my 5-year-old son walking in a park with a woman who yelled at us to get away from us because we were not wearing masks. I also had another situation at my place of employment where someone told me to get away from them, don't touch me, because I was not wearing a mask. These are the things you will start to see as we create fear, as we create anxiety of each other. This is not the way to build a community. Those things will progress if that is the way that we start to go. I truly believe it's not government's job to control or decide how one becomes or stays healthy, but to protect our constitutional rights and our liberties. So when you trade liberty for safety, you end up losing both. I believe, lastly, that we did this. We were told to flatten the curve. We did that. We were told to isolate. As a mother with 2 young children for 4 months, it is very hard to isolate your children from going and seeing their peers or family. We've already done that. We've done what we have been asked to do. Now it seems it is about control. Now it seems about pin each other against each other. This is not how God intended. God did not intend us to fight each other. We're intended to build each other up and work together in a community. So at the end, I will say this. This is America. This is freedom of choice. Seatbelts and hairnets are not the same thing as requiring a cloth over your face for hours and hours of day. It is also a symbol of silencing and speech. I do not agree with that at all. So for me, I simply ask, please do not adhere to what other states are doing or what other cities are doing. Think about these implications, especially for children. The way that they're going to grow up will affect them behaviorally when you see something that is covered on their face constantly as a norm. Let's not make this the norm. Thank you so much for listening to us. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. David?
Can you hear me through this?
Yes.
All right. I have only 2 brief things to share with you, Mayor. My name is David Hornbeek. I'm an architect here in Edmond. My business address is 101 South Broadway, Suite 200. And my home address is 4008 Chickasha. No avenue, no street, it's just Chickasha. The first thing I'm going to say to you is, I came here today because I was under the impression that this special meeting was about closing business. And I was armed for bear.
Don't bring it up again.
No, but now that
We're done with that.
The fact that we understand that, what you're seeing here about masks, I can't imagine what you would get if you tried to close the businesses. So please keep that in mind. That's number one. Number two, they'll make this pretty brief. I think all of us remember this. I'm sorry I don't have it where I can show it to everybody. But this was what we were supposed to do, flatten the curve. I'll turn around and show everybody here. The incredible thing about this, I don't know if you can see it, is that this dashed line right here represents the healthcare system capacity. What we were hoping to do by flattening the curve was not peak beyond the healthcare system capacity. But what this chart also shows is that in the long run, we would reach close to healthcare capacity, and by flattening the curve, we would stretch out our time period much further. Guess what? That's exactly where we are. What this is, I got it right off the computer about an hour ago. This is a graph of the COVID cases in the state of Oklahoma. I did my best to cast that line on top of the flatten the curve chart. Where are we? We're approaching healthcare system capacity. That's if you don't count the fact that Deaconess is totally vacant. But you can also see that these peaks go up and down. I suspect that we're going to be along that line for some time. And then it will finally come down if we believe in the flatten the curve idea. With that said, I just wanted you to see that graphically so you'll know where we are in the process, and I don't envy the decision you have to make.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Hornby, council?
I like your mask, Hornby.
Something always fun.
Thank you, David.
Makes me smile.
Nick, Josh, Daryl.
So what are you going to give us?
I'll say this too. I'm a law-abiding citizen. Whatever you decide, I will uphold. I wear this mask today, not because I am threatened by anybody who says I need to wear a mask, and someone who tells me that I've got it on and tries to threaten me because they don't like them. It's water off my back. I wear it out of respect for every one of you in this room.
Well, you look good in it, David.
Thank you. I like yours as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Hello, my name is Matt Emilian. I've been in Edmond for 8 years. I live at 701 Tacoma Bridge Court. I had actually told my wife a little bit ago before we came over from the overflow that I was like, I think enough people have spoken. I was like, I'm probably good. But she said, no, you should. She's right. I mean, every voice is the same. So as others have said, I do not envy any of you guys up there. I appreciate what you do, doing a public service. Done a lot of hearing and a lot of listening, so I know it's hard to take in a lot of information, so I'm grateful. It's not a Calvin Coolidge quote, so I'm not on that level, but a great pastor and leader that I've heard of through the years, Andy Stanley, regarding politics one time said, we may disagree about what's best, but we all agree that what's best is best. I mean, and I believe that. I believe that you up there, people out here, whether they want to require masks, want to wear one, or those who feel like they have the freedom not to, we all want what's best for people. Like, I don't want to wear a mask. I don't want to be required to. I don't wear one when I don't have to. But I absolutely care as much as anybody in this room about individuals out there. I don't want to see people get sick, and I don't want to see people die. But that doesn't, I mean, again, we can go back to the freedom thing, and we will. Like, I'm with those who have said it is my complete right, and it would bother me deeply to see that decision made. So I know that's been repeated multiple times tonight. One thing that's gotten me throughout these COVID times is just when rules are implemented that just, there's not a lot of logic behind it. Like when you go to a grocery store and there's the 6 feet signs, you have to stay, away from the belt when somebody's ahead of you, but you go up there to sign your credit card. They still make you sign with the pen that everybody has to use for the credit card thing. Doesn't make sense. At Lowe's, they were limiting the people to go outside areas, so inside they had a long line to wait to get outside where people were congregating, and I'm like, this isn't making sense to me. And so now we have a lot of people I know who I can just visually see who do not take good care of themselves on a day-to-day basis. Like, they don't live a healthy lifestyle at all. They can choose to eat whatever they want. That's their freedom, their lifestyle. They don't exercise. They don't get out in the sun. That's fine. That's their rules. But they don't get to all of a sudden come tell me what I need to do to protect my health and how I need to protect them. I want to see that people are willing to make sacrifices proactively to care about their health without requiring me to live a lifestyle that they say protects them. So again, thank you all very much for listening and hearing all of us this evening.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Majid Asali. I own Simply Falafel here, one of the first Mediterranean gourmet, casual gourmet, and I'm next to Target here, and I love this community. I came to Edmond because I chose to come to Edmond to open one of the first Mediterranean and healthy choice place to eat. I managed country clubs for 30 years, and I decided 10 years ago I don't want to work for anybody, and I want to have this special things in Edmond. All this crisis is happening right now is affecting on our emotions, our life, our livelihood. My 3 kids graduated from Edmond, from UCO and Oklahoma Christian. Love Edmond. I live in Oklahoma City on 112 York Way by Lake Hefner. But I drive every day 17 miles to come to work. I have never worked harder than I work today since that COVID thing started. I put 10 hours a day, 13 hours a day because I want to stay open and I want to serve the community. And I love this community, and I believe that the choice I made by myself, my family, it took me 3 years to build the business I am in right today. And we just got back to the place where I needed to be. The people in Edmond and surrounding area have supported me tremendously. I believe, the first one started that curbside service 2 days prior to started it, enforced in here because my wife works for the health department. And she told me, Majid, you need to think of something right away because they're going to close the restaurant and just try to do something different. I sanitize my restaurant 3 times a week. I have company comes and spray it on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. The way they spray at the hospitals. This company is in here. They used to be an oil business, and they switched immediately to take care of this new business. I believe the choice should be not on somebody else to tell me what I need to do. I wear mask when I go outside. When I have somebody bringing an order, wanted me to deliver the food for them, my staff do the same thing. We wear gloves in the restaurant. We sanitize all the tables. We have all this special 6 feet apart. But I lost almost 4 or 5 major parties between April and May was scheduled, I was supposed to do a catering, and I lost them all, over $8,000 to $10,000 business. But I'm not about to, I cannot handle to lose any more business today. I mean, my customers walking in, when they walk in with their mask, we put the mask on. I honestly tell you right now, I've been in here 8 years and going 9, and people have the choice. They walk in and there, and actually the other night, I had some customers walked into my restaurant, and my staff had a mask. She said, tell them not to come to the table if they're gonna have the mask on. We decided to come out of the house because we want to sit in here and relax. So I sat down with them and had coffee with them, and we enjoyed the evening. So that is the choice. That is what America is about, is what you can do, what you have to do without anybody telling you what you have to, you need to wear a mask or tell me what to do. Does anybody miss a check? I missed many checks in the last 3-4 months. I want to know if those people in here talking about wearing a mask and enforcing some rules on somebody don't know. I wear a mask when I go to Crest. I wear a mask when I go to Walmart to go shopping. I wear a mask. I wear a mask because I want to protect my health. I'm a heart patient, but I want to protect my health. And I believe I am doing the best I can, and I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. Because I managed those country clubs for 30 years, and I dealt with all kind of people. I know what they are. And I came to America by choice 42 years ago. And I love America. But somebody doesn't like the way it is, the freedom, they need to leave, I think.
Yes. Thank you very much, and thank you for your service to our community.
My name's Jeremy Mode. I'm a pulmonary critical care physician at OU in Edmond. I live at 1101 Falls Bridge Court in Twin Bridges. A little nervous. Tomorrow we'll be dealing with the bubonic plague. That was a joke. It's the new one coming up from China. So, I think a lot of this comes from things being heavily politicized about this mask thing. I wear a mask everywhere I go. I'm a healthcare provider. I work in an ICU. All my patients are high risk. I see it as a symbol of pride. I think that's kind of where part of it started, is that some of our leaders did not step up and use their platform in a positive way and try to influence the decisions that we need to make in order to halt this virus and to protect others. Instead, it was politicized, and now we've got two different ideologies fighting each other instead of coming together and finding a good solution. And so when you get on social media, you get on the Nextdoor app, you get on Facebook, people are just constantly attacking each other. There's a lot of misinformation being spouted, and I think a lot of it has to do with their decisions are based on misinformation. And so when we talk about freedom and choice and things, I think there needs to be some clarification. So fortunately, I'm able to almost go last, I guess, and so I get to do some counterpoints on people that they can't argue back with me.
Well, you have a time limit. I thought
All
I'd let
right,
you
so
know.
real quick, masks do work. There's plenty of data that suggests this based out of the Lancet, based on multiple studies, meta-analysis. They do work. N95s work. Surgical masks work. They prevent droplets from transmission. Fomites or contact precaution are not the main spread. So the gentleman talked about, pins and shopping carts. That's usually not how it's spread. We know that. It's mostly droplet right now. There is some data that's coming out that suggests that it's airborne. Yeah, that's anecdotal for now. We don't have anything, concrete. And as a counterpoint to what he said is that, people, were standing in line close together at Lowe's. Despite all that, because we were still doing the best we could with social distancing and mask wearing, the curve dropped, or the curve flattened. Somebody said the coronavirus is the common cold. No, it ain't. Not even close. Common cold didn't kill people. People don't die from the common cold. Another person said, you can't get enough oxygen through a mask. or you're breathing your own CO2 and that's toxin, that's dangerous. Not true. The O2, oxygen molecules, CO2 molecules are way too small. We're talking microns. This virus is so much bigger. It's 250 times bigger. It gets blocked by the mask. The oxygen and CO2 doesn't. Somebody brought up about decisions, about freedom of choice, and us not telling people how to live their life or their healthy choices or whatnot. Those people's decisions based upon their own health care don't affect us. If you want to go eat a hamburger, raise your cholesterol, smoke, it doesn't affect anybody but you. But this does. This affects other people in a drastic way. When your decisions start impacting my health and my patient's health and my family's health, then that gives me the right to say something to you. Rights, somebody brought up that we're silencing speech. This is not about rights and silencing your speech. This is about protecting our humans, people that we were supposed to protect, people I'm supposed to protect. We're supposed to look out for each other. We're not supposed to just fight each other. It's not speech. This was all politicized from the beginning. It shouldn't be that way. People constantly come up here and talk about the death rates. Yeah, death rates are low. Yeah, if you look worldwide, they're at like they're below 1%. But that's not the whole story. You have to look at local levels. You have to look at per 100,000 people. You have to look at age groups. That's how a scientific study is based upon. When you get above 45 years of age, your death rate goes up dramatically. The majority of deaths are above people age of 50. The main people that are getting hospitalized, they're below the age of 50. Cities and states that have had guidance, in masking guidance, strict policies on social distancing, have seen a massive drop in the transmission rates and in their hospitalizations. A guy before me said that he showed the graph about the hospitalization rates and about the healthcare capacity, and that's what this is about. It's not about death rates. It never was. People are going to die. They're going to have to. It's part of it. But the problem is overwhelming the healthcare capacity. Deaconess is empty right now, but OU's not. Baptist is not. Mercy's not. Tulsa sure as heck isn't. They're starting to burst, and it's not just about beds either. It's about nursing ratios, it's about doctor ratios. Whenever there's a massive influx of patients that need hospitalization and care, and you don't have enough nurses and doctors, mortality goes up, medical mistakes go up, morbidity goes up. That's what it's about. It's about flattening the curve, making sure that this occurs over a long period of time, not just a big, massive surge, which is what we're seeing now. Visitation rights, somebody brought that up with nursing homes. Yeah, I mean, that's a sad deal, but those are also our most vulnerable. And it's profoundly sad to sit there and watch someone die through an iPad. Unless you've been there, you can't say anything about it. Schools, I mean, that's going to be a big thing. I've got 4 kids. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do. My wife's been teaching homeschooling for the last several months, and it's miserable. And my God, I mean, you have a lot of respect for teachers at this point in time when you have to sit there and entertain 4 boys, all under the age of 6. But I'm not really kind of worried about that right now because the data suggests that kids aren't really transmitters. They're going to be okay. Sure, there are some cases of this Kawasaki's disease and systemic inflammatory response, but it's pretty low. And kids are going to be okay. And we need to go back to school. And they're not the vectors. I think I came to into my list. That's kind of, I didn't really transition to a good ending point there, but I did the best I could.
Are you a doctor?
Yeah, I'm a pulmonary critical care physician, ICU doctor, lung doctor.
And you work at OU? And you work at OU?
Yeah, OU Edmond up here. I don't speak on their behalf because that would,
I understand.
So my own personal thing, I couldn't.
There's a couple of doctors that would save my career, so I got you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor O'Neill and City Council, thank you very much for hearing me today. I appreciate your willingness to open this forum. My name is Cherie DeBell. I live at 104 East 2nd Street in Arcadia at this point, which is still within the Edmond School District. And my family has lived and/or worked at various addresses in the Edmond city limits and Edmond area for over 20 years. My husband and I are both self-employed, and we have 4 special needs children. I didn't come here tonight to speak as much as to listen. I was very concerned about what was being said online about shutting things down, and so I'm very encouraged to hear that this council is committed to open discussion and making our own decision and not following blindly, and so I want to thank you for that very, very much. There are a few things that, as I was listening today, I think have not been addressed, and I would like to limit my comments to those things specifically. The major one of which would be statistics. We heard in the very beginning of this meeting about cases going up. Various statistics are quoted all the time. I think it's not a surprise to anyone. I doubt that anyone would disagree, and I say that with conviction, that there is conflicting information all over the place, right? So what do we believe? So my question actually is, how are we arriving at the statistics that we're using? And I ask that in light of the fact that there are various cities, various municipalities, various organizations that are using statistics to say these are positive cases based on if they have antibodies, or if they're actively infected, or have they been tested more than once, or there might be 7 or 8 different reasons why a case is counted as a case. And I think that that radically skews what we're actually looking at. And so I'm asking that question, how are we arriving at the idea that our cases are radically going up? Okay. Number 2, I would like to say, there have been assumptions asserted here as fact that I do not necessarily believe are fact. And one of those is that masks make people feel more comfortable. For some people they do, for other people they do not. And as the mother of a child who cannot wear a mask without literally getting dizzy and feeling that she's going to pass out, that has been a problem in our home. This is a child with healthcare problems. This is a child who has low blood oxygen as a medical condition. And yet she cannot go anywhere. She has not been anywhere for 6 months now. She has not seen a single friend. She talks to people online, and she doesn't go to the store. She doesn't do anything else because this is going on. And yet I feel the need to preserve my right as her mother to protect my child in the way that I feel she needs to be protected. And we work with our doctors, and we work with people that we feel have knowledge and information that is valid. And I think that there is a lot of conflicting information, and I appreciate the freedom that we have in this country to judge for ourselves what information is valid and what information we need to follow. The third thing that I would like to address is we say things like capacity in our healthcare systems have been reached. It's interesting to me to note that I have many friends who work in the healthcare industry who are out of work right now. So that is one of those gray areas, those statistics where we say, well, we've reached capacity, yet we've lowered capacity. So, you know, it's at some point, yeah, they meet. So if we need more capacity, we have those workers, we have those beds. okay? I know that my son has been denied medical care because I could not take him without his brother coming, okay? I think that he should have been able to go to the hospital and get the test that he needed. And when I asked when that would change, they told me when there's a cure for a coronavirus. How many decades have we been looking for a cure for coronavirus, and my son cannot be treated because we are going to find one in the next few months? Really? I find that preposterous. The last thing I would like to leave you with is the concept of civil discourse. With one notable exception, everyone in this room has addressed this council with civility, and I want to say thank you. Even the people that disagreed with me, you have the right to disagree, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I think that those who choose to call names and those who choose to not engage in civil discourse, maybe they should be the people who are fined or arrested or removed from the public forum. Thank you very much, Mayor
Quite
O'Neill.
welcome. Good luck with your
and City
kids,
Council.
okay?
Thank you.
I think that concludes our comments. Any final comments, council, that we want to advise staff on?
I have a.
Okay. Got a closing statement for it?
I do, actually.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay.
I feel like the kid at school has been waiting here to wave his hand and say, "Can I talk now?" And that's painful for me. So if you'll let me talk now. You know, in the 8 years I've been on the city council, this is probably the most contentious issue that we've dealt with. I've gotten more emails on this subject, and people are very passionate here. And you know, I normally speak extemporaneously, but I wrote down some things I wanted to say, and I want to be sure that I say it right. So if you'll forgive me, I'm going to read it so I get all the points in here. So in March, we started the painful process of shutting down businesses and activities to slow down COVID-19. Nobody liked it. And I tried to stop the process of closing business as long as I could, and some of the other council members also. When the governor made his statewide emergency declaration, city council no longer had any other options. And as much as people disliked it, most reluctantly went along for a while, despite all the financial and personal pain. Now that we have reversed the process and have largely come out of the restriction, nobody wants to go backward again, and just the thought of doing so got everyone up in arms, especially recently. This is no longer simply about scientific right or wrong. What this tells me is that people are not only angry about it, but will not tolerate it any longer. I said in March that this was a prime example of government overreach. Then it got even worse. It also tells me that this is no longer about finding the statistician or the subject matter expert to support your preferred narrative. On any given day, we can find any number of experts with totally different opinions on what to do. So who's right? You, me, the city council, the health department? I don't really know, and neither do you or do they. What I do know is that people generally have had enough and don't care why anymore. Now, you can say that's right or wrong, but that's how it seems to be. They want their lives back, and they don't want government telling them how to live their lives. When we reach that point, we as a council need to listen to our citizens more than the so-called experts. One thing I do know is that you can only govern to the extent that people are willing to be governed. We are close to that limit, and people are saying enough. That is why you are seeing such a backlash over all of this around the country. So the big debate tonight is whether to add some kind of mandatory usage of masks. I personally am opposed to mandatory mask usage requirements because that should be a personal choice. There's that word again. We've heard it so much tonight. Personal choice and personal responsibility is the key. We can suggest or highly recommend the wearing of masks in various situations, but that is ultimately the choice of the individual and the individual businesses. So we all got a lot of emails, and I kind of took an unofficial poll on the subject of masks, and as near as I can tell, the emails were 5-1 at least against requiring masks. If a particular business wants their staff and every customer to wear a mask, that is their choice. If the customer is not okay with that, he or she will not come in because that is their choice. If you don't feel comfortable going out in public or any particular location, don't go. I can go on, but you get the point, and a number of people have articulated this very, very well this evening. We need personal choice and personal responsibility for ourselves and our families, and it is not up to the city council or any government to decide that for you. So because of that, I'm fine with the guidelines from the county health department, the CDC, and other regulators, and even suggesting strongly that people wear masks in certain situations. But I just cannot vote for mandating requirements, masks in the public environment. That goes against everything that I have stood for. Thank you for hearing me out.
Any comments, other comments, council?
I think I do. I really appreciate what Nick said, and I'll just make a statement for everybody that came and talked. This is kind of like when we're campaigning and we're running for office, you always want to talk to the constituents and the citizens of Edmond, and it's pretty cool when you have a situation that they come and talk to us too. It's kind of equal that way, and so I appreciate. Somebody said about people being civil and having a discussion and the conversation, and I think it was pretty civil tonight. And I was just sitting there a couple of times and going, man, what a blessing that we're getting to sit here, and citizens of Edmond that most of us have never met before, probably, some of these fine folks, that we're getting to hear their perspective and their opinion, and that's what we were put in place to do. So I am thankful for that. I wanted to say one thing, and this is not to, I don't think this is necessarily to change anybody's mind or to set something in motion. I just want to say it. From the emails that we received, and there was a bunch of them, I mean a bunch, and we all try to look at them all, I know we do, that they go in all kinds of different directions. But one thing I pointed out myself was I tried to tag the emails that came from a medical professional. And I don't know why that's the case. I don't. I just did. Who went to college to learn the science of medicine? Who went to who is trained? Who is seeing it every day on these medical situations? And I had an email from somebody that I do respect, and it said it was his opinion that this is a medical situation, not a political situation. And I have to think about that. This is a medical case that we are dealing with right now. People are getting sick, and they are going to the hospital to get treated for this. So it is a medical situation, and there are a lot of political conversations that are happening around this. I'm hearing it loud and clear from who came and talked to us tonight about freedoms And I share those same opinions and the same concerns. Not different in that way. At the same time, I have this huge hook that's also pulling at me on these emails that I received from medical professionals and doctors. I did not get one email from a doctor that said masks don't work, or freedom, our freedom is more important than masks. I'm just sharing that that's what I received. And that's one thing that jumped out to me. So if there's a balance somewhere in there, if there should be a balance somewhere in there, and we are choosing freedoms over mandates or requirements, I'm going to throw that challenge out to us. How do we communicate the knowledge and the experience that our medical doctors have that they're sharing with us? How do we communicate that to our citizens and help spread that out there, that this is information that is very important and can be useful for you. We may not want to tell you what to do. We understand that. But at the same time, we need to share this information with you. And we really hope you use it, and we really hope you take it. Because they're not doing it for any other reason other than to look out for everybody and to care for everyone. So that's, again, I'm not leading it in any other direction other than what we're all hearing tonight, and wanted to state that 100% from the emails from the doctors that I got were saying that they support masks.
I was struck by one of the last speakers that was the pulmonary doctor. And the biggest scare I got during all this pandemic thing was a call from my cardiologist. And they were in the process of trying to figure out how to expand the capacity for hospitals. And they were running into problems. And he said, it's here, it's real, and it's gonna be bad. I'm so glad that it hasn't really turned out that way, as radically as we thought at that particular time. But, we got to depend on our doctors. And this really is, like Josh said, it is sort of a medical thing. The only problem with what the doctors recommend is how do we make it work? And I'm not so sure that the mandatory way will make it work. I'd love for it to, but there's, I think I asked was maybe we can have some volunteers to go around and be math marshals or, go around and do that, and then see how many people want to volunteer to do that job. Because there's people being shot, and killed because somebody asked them to wear a mask in a McDonald's, for God's sake, and that's sort of, how do we enforce this and make it work? So that's the other part of the dilemma. The argument that you made, the validity for the mask is true, but how do we make it work? And the only thing we can do is really sort of convince our community that it is important, not only for the vulnerable bunch, but for all the citizens in our community, and it's just a matter of respect. So I'd like to figure out a way to make it work, okay? And making it mandatory, I don't know that we have a real good solution out there. And there's just so many situations where people get so PO'd over something and they turn violent, and that's scary too. So we're sort of in that quandary of how to make it work. And really it sort of comes down to we really need to hear more from our medical professionals on this, because there are a lot of people that need to be convinced that this really is a problem, and it's not a matter of freedom. It's a matter of your health and your coworkers' health. And I think You know, if people aren't going to listen to the medical community, then, you know, we're just whistling Dixie up here, so. But that's the salesmanship job that we have to do, is to, and I think, you know, we really haven't seen our front line of defense come out here and talk and tell us about it. But the doctor that was here, the pulmonary doctor here, that's probably the most convincing presentation that I've seen on this thing. And he's not a health professional, he's a frontline trooper. And I would like to see more of that information provided to the community. And that's what was sort of strong about the lady and Dr. Fauci that the president had speaking every day. Everybody, you know, everybody would listen to what they were because they had that experience. And so we really need to convince our medical community needs to help step up and convince our citizens that masks do work, and it is important, and it's not a political issue. It's simply something that we need to do because we live in a community and we want everybody to succeed and get through this well. So, Daryl?
One way that I would recommend that to help things work is what we're doing right now on Mondays. We're talking about it. Having the ability for the community to come up and express their concerns. That helps facilitate that conversation, because what we heard tonight were people from the medical saying from their inalienable rights and all that, and what we're talking about here is just your health to stay alive. This virus is a little bit different from other viruses that are out there, and I want everyone to get out there because I want, especially the kids, I want the little germinators out there because our bodies naturally fight diseases and all that, but I want us to understand the why. You know, yes, death rates are going down. Yes, I agree that the data that we are receiving has been skewed. It's not consistent. It's not even consistent of the 50 states that their health departments are reporting the data the same way. And so there's an uneasiness there of society that if we can't get 50 health departments to display the data the same way, and it means has the same definitions, that causes churn in people. So we need to understand that. Something that isn't also in my mind being discussed, we talked about the number of people being recovered, but is that fully recovered? Because some people I know that have been sick, they're well. They're not on the list anymore, but their lungs are scarred. And so, do we have that person over there in the fully recovered category? Probably so, but really they have something that's going to bother them for the rest of their life. Their breathing apparatuses are scarred. So it is a medical situation here. It's not about taking anyone's rights. It's about understanding what in the medical science is going on. And I said before, science is not exact. It is at a big, we have to keep, you have to set your parameters. Okay, that didn't work. Let's go to the next parameters. That's what happened. How do you think some of the great inventions were made in this world? It wasn't an exact science. A lot of the things that we use today were accidents. They were accidents in the lab. So guess what? We need to figure out how to help people understand that. I don't want to take away any rights. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother day. But I do appreciate the people. I do appreciate the civil discourse that was up here. And in closing, this reminds me of this. There's an Oklahoma standard out there. When there's a severe weather event, it doesn't matter who you are, the color of your skin, the income you make, or anything. We stand shoulder to shoulder to help our neighbor overcome that event. Each and every time that has happened in the state of Oklahoma. We have that same situation right now, is that we have something out here that we cannot see, And yes, the numbers are low on the people that are getting affected, the numbers of people that die, but let that be one of your loved ones. That number is bigger than heck. That number is bigger than heck. If that's one of your loved ones that died, that's in that small percentage. So just something for us to think about. It's just how do we help each other overcome this in a society so we can stay the great community that we are. Let's not get distracted by other things that distractors want us to get distracted by. We have something out here we can't see. And as somebody in my family says, it kills you dead if you get it the wrong way. There ain't no coming back. Thank you.
Very well. Any further comments, Dave? Good. Okay, all right. Are we ready for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Second. Please cast your vote, council. Thank you very much. Thank everyone in the audience for being here. Thank you, Randall, for even being here.
Look good in that suit, Randall.